Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, honoured guests. It seems perverse to be standing here in the middle of a joyous culmination to a wonderful year, filled with tributes to a season of light, when my speech is going to be about darkness. But it is my nature to do things a little bit differently, so I hope you will indulge me this evening as well. We are, in fact, 10 days from the longest night of the year. In fact, the winter solstice, after which we trip over gratefully into the embrace once more of the lengthening hours of daylight. But it is also true that at this point we are still going towards that moment. We are not yet there. And while indeed it is a season to celebrate lots of Sagittarius birthdays, and Sagittarius, as those of us who know a little bit of astrology, are aware that Jupiter is the lord of Sagittarius, and it is a very joyful time. Just around the corner, and in fact by December 25th, for those of us who celebrate Christmas, we go into the domain of Capricorn, and Capricorn has a ruler that's very, very different from Sagittarius. It is in fact under the dominion of the planet Saturn, and Saturn is the lord of the dark times. It is lord of the stillness. It is lord of the boundaries, the limitations to life, and the cold times. So it's not surprising that we go into winter as flushed as we can be with good times, with merriment, with wine, with food, and time spent with loved ones, because we know instinctively the dark times lie ahead until we get to the spring equinox, and once more we can feel that thrill of vitality. So how then can I recommend darkness as something good? Well, I must turn, in this case, to a kind of series of analogies. First of all, what does darkness as a colour represent? The colour black. If you look at the martial arts, black is the colour of attainment. It is the colour of mastery. It is a colour to denote that you have, through your own diligence and your own commitment, attained a level of mastery that could not otherwise have been gifted to you. It had to be taken through your own diligence, your hard work, and your focus on a goal that lay at the beginning very, very far from you. It is also the colour that is worn traditionally by all of those members of the professions who have some degree of seniority. Black is the colour associated with age. It is a colour associated with the value given to labours taken over time. And it is also a colour that reminds us that the shadows need not be our enemies. They can be a welcoming of a culmination of the fruits of a time spent looking towards something magnificent, something which honours us and honours the time spent in the undertaking of it. Black also has a different meaning associated with it. Again, not a very friendly one. We tend to think of darkness as a time of endings, as a time of mourning, as a time of being cut off from things that we consider precious and valuable. And yet, if we examine the lives of those that we commend in our histories, the lives of great statespeople, the lives of great soldiers, the lives of great leaders, often there will have been periods of great darkness in their lives, periods where the joy that is normally associated with life was taken away somehow with them. Consider that so many of our stories, our films, our sacred writings, concern themselves with episodes in which some virtuous soul, be he a prophet or a brave king or queen, or just somebody who was cast out, and upon that person all the guilt and the fears of some tribe were put on. Their story included a time of isolation, of being put away in a prison or in some holding place. Consider Nelson Mandela, 27 years behind bars, waiting for a moment where he would come to the light to serve his country. We have these images that we are very familiar with about periods of darkness, but they are associated not necessarily just with suffering, but with grace, with courage, with heroism, and, once again, with a degree of maturity that only comes when you've had to spend a lot of time doing without. And so we come to a third examination of this word, darkness. And here I'd like to talk a little bit about the process of alchemy. Now, some of you, perhaps, have read Paulo Coelho's famous book, The Alchemist. Alchemy, in fact, has been around for centuries. In the Western mystery tradition, it has a lot to do with what began in around about 12th century Europe, where people of all stripes were secretly trying to turn base metals into gold. But much later on, somewhere around the 1940s, a man named Carl Jung rediscovered the process of alchemy, but from a very spiritual perspective. And for him, alchemy was the process of individuation. It was looking at the dark bits of yourself that had not yet been embraced or acknowledged. And through a series of, well, shall we say, spiritual crises, intense times, where other people's comfort and words of love or guidance could not reach you, somehow being purified to reach a state that was far above what had originally been present. Now, I know I'm not supposed to use jargon, but just to put a little gloss on it, there were 4 stages of alchemy. The first began in Nigredo, it went to Albedo, then proceeded to Securitas, and culminated in Rubedo. Transformation, then, was the key and the gift of this particular darkness. I'd like to leave you with a fragment from a poem that talks about a tiger that is the embodiment of this coming grace disguised as darkness, and leave it there. And that is a poem called The Tiger by A.D. Hope. It goes a little like this. My child, then set aside your fear, unbar the door and walk outside. The real tiger waits you there. His golden eyes shall be your guide. And if he spare you in his wrath, the world and all the worlds are yours. And if he leap the jungle path and clasp you in his bloody jaws, then say, as his divine embrace destroys the mortal part of you, I too am of that royal race who do what we are born to do. I don't